that miracle which brought piped clean water to the city, squatted there in squalid shanties with their pigs and goats. The park was wonderful, and she was so glad that the people of the city had somewhere serenely beautiful to escape to. But to her mind, the new Brooklyn Bridge was more splendid. While nature had created the true magic of the park, the bridge was an entirely man-made miracle. Engineering and artistry working hand in hand to make something which looked fragile and beautiful, yet was strong enough to withstand the elements and the heaviest of traffic. She felt no sorrow that the city bore little resemblance to the one she arrived in over half a century ago. For she was no longer the excited, wide-eyed girl who had fallen in love with its honest, brash and bold exuberance. They had both been changed by circumstance, ambition, greed, and powerful men. Yet that honesty she had loved it for was still in place. She hoped she'd retained hers too. Hearing a peal of girlish laughter, she glanced over her shoulder to the wheelhouse. It pleased her to see the tug owner and his daughter working so happily together. They could of course be laughing at her, but that didn't matter. She had selected this boat purely out of sentimentality on hearing Giuseppe was a widower, and that he worked with his daughter. Her father had been a riverman on the Thames, and they had been very close too. When she'd seen their open, friendly faces, she doubled the amount she had first intended to offer. The money she'd given them would put extra food on their table. Maybe the girl could buy herself a pretty dress. She remembered only too well how young girls ached for something frivolous. There hadn't been so many Italians here when she first landed. The immigrants then were predominantly English, Irish and German. Yet from 1845 and onwards, Italians, Poles, Russians, Jews, and a great many other races had come here in their hundreds and thousands, each nationality adding further spice and character to the crowded city. Yet Giuseppe didn't speak with an Italian accent, so he must have been born here, and perhaps his mother had been Dutch or German to give him those blue eyes and fair hair. His daughter, Fanny, he'd said her name was, reminded her of herself at 17. Thick blonde hair, eyes as blue as forget-me-nots, and a similar sturdy, no-nonsense look about her. It seemed strange that she wore men's clothes, but then she supposed a long dress on a boat was hardly practical. Besides, she herself had resorted to wearing men's pants a few times back in '49, out in the West when it wasn't safe to look too feminine in a town overrun by hard-drinking, gold-seeking men. As the tug approached the Staten Island ferry, her heart quickened, for just behind it was State Street, where she'd lived when she first arrived here. Sadly, the quaint little wooden house and some of its neighbouring fine federal houses had been demolished to make way for offices and warehouses. Few people lived in this neighbourhood now. They had all moved further uptown. Wall Street was now a street of banks and financial institutions. Trinity Church at the top of it, which had so many memories for her, was one of the few remaining old buildings. She thought it sad that the church's elegant spire, the highest landmark when she arrived here, would soon be hidden by the giant buildings New Yorkers seemed to love so much. But then, Americans didn't appear to have nostalgia for old places. Yet Castle Clinton was still much the same, though in her time it had been an island, reached by a walkway from the Battery. The shore area had been reclaimed for many years now, filled in with tons of rubble and grassed over to make Battery Park. Castle Clinton had become a clearinghouse for immigrants. Now it was an aquarium. But back in 1842, it had been a concert hall with a green around it, and it was there she met Flynn O'Reilly. She closed her eyes for a moment, remembering his first kiss. It seemed odd that after all these years she could still recall the magic of it, and all the turbulent emotions he awakened in her heart. I wonder what would have happened, she thought aloud. To who, ma'am? She was startled to find the young girl at her elbow looking quizzically at her. Yet she wasn't embarrassed. One of the few advantages she'd found in becoming old was the freedom to do and say exactly what she pleased, even talk to herself. To me, if I'd run off with my first love, she explained with a wide smile. My life might have turned out quite different. Fanny was delighted the old lady seemed to want to talk. Aside from intense curiosity about this odd passenger, her working life was male-dominated, and she often longed for female company. So,